NEC 110.28 addresses the protection of electrical equipment. Specifically, it states that electrical equipment shall be protected from physical damage where necessary. For outdoor equipment, protection from the weather is mandatory and must be achieved using specific types of enclosures. The National Electrical Code stipulates the use of NEMA 3R, NEMA 4, or NEMA 4X enclosures, or alternatively, a weatherproof enclosure designed for outdoor use. A NEMA 3R enclosure provides protection against rain, sleet, snow, and the formation of ice. These enclosures are commonly used for applications where exposure to the elements is a concern but submersion is not anticipated. NEMA 4 enclosures offer a high degree of protection. They are designed to safeguard against splashing water, hose-directed water, and the entry of solid foreign objects such as dust and dirt. These are suitable for environments where equipment may be subject to washdowns or exposure to more severe weather conditions. NEMA 4X enclosures provide the same level of protection as NEMA 4 enclosures, but with the added benefit of corrosion resistance. They are typically constructed from stainless steel or non-metallic materials, making them ideal for use in corrosive environments such as those found in coastal areas or industrial settings. A wooden enclosure does not meet the requirements of the National Electrical Code for protecting electrical equipment installed outdoors. Wood is susceptible to moisture damage, rot, and insect infestation, and it does not provide adequate protection against the elements or physical damage. Installing a transfer switch in an NEMA 3R enclosure, or one with a higher NEMA rating, is a code-compliant solution for protecting the switch from the elements and potential physical damage. This ensures the safety and reliability of the electrical installation. When selecting an NEMA enclosure, it's crucial to consider the specific environmental conditions at the installation location. Factors such as temperature, humidity, exposure to sunlight, and the presence of corrosive substances should all be taken into account. Furthermore, the enclosure must be sized appropriately to accommodate the transfer switch and any associated wiring or components. Proper installation of the enclosure is also essential to ensure that it provides the intended level of protection. This includes ensuring that all seals and gaskets are properly installed and that the enclosure is securely mounted to a suitable support structure. It's also important to follow the manufacturer's instructions for installation and maintenance. Regular inspections of the enclosure should be conducted to identify any signs of damage or deterioration. Any necessary repairs or replacements should be made promptly to maintain the integrity of the enclosure and the protection it provides. In addition to the NEMA rating of the enclosure, it's also important to consider other factors such as the material of construction, the method of mounting, and the availability of accessories such as knockouts, vents, and grounding provisions. The enclosure should be made from a material that is compatible with the environment in which it will be installed. For example, stainless steel enclosures are often used in corrosive environments, while aluminum enclosures are suitable for applications where weight is a concern. The method of mounting should be appropriate for the type of surface to which the enclosure will be attached. Wall-mounted enclosures are typically used for indoor applications, while pole-mounted enclosures are used for outdoor applications. Accessories such as knockouts, vents, and grounding provisions can make the installation process easier and more convenient. Knockouts allow for the easy entry and exit of wires and cables. Vents help to prevent the buildup of condensation inside the enclosure. Grounding provisions ensure that the enclosure is properly grounded, which is essential for safety. The National Electrical Code provides specific requirements for the grounding of electrical equipment. These requirements are intended to minimize the risk of electrical shock and to ensure that electrical equipment operates safely and reliably. In general, all metal enclosures that house electrical equipment must be grounded. This can be accomplished by connecting the enclosure to a grounding electrode conductor, which is typically a copper wire that is connected to a grounding electrode such as a ground rod or a metal water pipe. The size of the grounding electrode conductor must be appropriate for the size of the electrical system. The National Electrical Code provides tables that specify the minimum size of the grounding electrode conductor based on the size of the service entrance conductors. In addition to grounding the enclosure, it's also important to ground the electrical equipment that is housed inside the enclosure. This can be accomplished by connecting the equipment to a grounding conductor, which is typically a green or bare copper wire. The grounding conductor must be sized appropriately for the size of the circuit that supplies the equipment. The National Electrical Code provides tables that specify the minimum size of the grounding conductor based on the size of the circuit conductors. It's also important to ensure that all electrical connections are made properly. Loose or corroded connections can cause overheating and electrical hazards. All electrical connections should be made using approved connectors and should be tightened to the manufacturer's specifications. In addition to the requirements of the National Electrical Code, there may be other applicable codes and standards that must be followed. These may include local building codes, fire codes, and environmental regulations. It's important to consult with local authorities to determine the specific requirements that apply to the installation. Finally, it's important to remember that electrical work can be dangerous. Only qualified electricians should perform electrical work. If you are not qualified to perform electrical work, it's best to hire a licensed electrician to do the job. This will ensure that the work is done safely and in accordance with all applicable codes and standards. In summary, protecting outdoor electrical equipment requires careful attention to detail and adherence to all applicable codes and standards. By selecting the appropriate NEM enclosure, ensuring proper grounding, and making all electrical connections properly, you can help to ensure the safety and reliability of the electrical installation. Consider the environmental factors, ensure proper sizing, and inspect regularly. Remember that a wooden enclosure is not a code-compliant solution. Always consult with a qualified electrician to ensure that all work is done safely and in accordance with all applicable codes and standards. They can assess the specific installation and recommend the most suitable enclosure and protection methods. The selection of the correct NEM enclosure also depends on the specific equipment being housed within it. For example, a transfer switch may have specific ventilation requirements to prevent overheating, which would necessitate an enclosure with appropriate venting or cooling mechanisms. Also, the physical size and mounting requirements of the transfer switch will dictate the minimum dimensions and mounting options of the enclosure. Furthermore, the type of wiring and conduit entering the enclosure must be considered. The enclosure should have appropriately sized and located knockouts or entry points to accommodate the necessary wiring connections. Proper sealing around these entry points is crucial to maintain the NEM rating of the enclosure and prevent the ingress of moisture or contaminants. The accessibility of the transfer switch for maintenance and inspection is another important factor. The enclosure should be designed to allow easy access to the switch for routine maintenance, troubleshooting, and repairs. This may involve features such as hinged doors, removable panels, or internal lighting. In addition to the NEM rating, the enclosure should also be constructed from materials that are compatible with the environment in which it will be installed. For example, in coastal areas with high salt content, stainless steel or non-metallic enclosures are preferred due to their superior corrosion resistance. In areas with extreme temperature variations, the enclosure material should be able to withstand these fluctuations without warping or cracking. The installation of the enclosure should also be carefully planned and executed. The enclosure should be securely mounted to a stable surface using appropriate hardware. The mounting location should be chosen to minimize exposure to direct sunlight, rain, and other environmental factors. Proper grounding of the enclosure is essential for safety. The enclosure should be connected to a grounding electrode conductor of the appropriate size in accordance with the National Electrical Code. All grounding connections should be clean and tight to ensure a low impedance path to ground. Regular inspection and maintenance of the enclosure are crucial to ensure its continued effectiveness. The enclosure should be inspected periodically for signs of damage, such as cracks, dents, or corrosion. Any damaged component should be repaired or replaced promptly. The seals and gaskets should also be inspected regularly to ensure that they are still in good condition and providing a proper seal. In addition to the physical protection provided by the enclosure, it's also important to consider other factors that can affect the performance and reliability of the transfer switch. These include proper ventilation, surge protection, and overcurrent protection. Proper ventilation is essential to prevent overheating of the transfer switch. The enclosure should be designed to allow adequate airflow around the switch, or it should be equipped with a ventilation system to remove heat. Surge protection can help to protect the transfer switch from damage caused by voltage surges or spikes. Surge protective devices should be installed on the incoming power lines to divert excess voltage to ground. Overcurrent protection is necessary to protect the transfer switch from damage caused by excessive current flow. Circuit breakers or fuses should be installed in the power lines to interrupt the current flow in the event of an overload or short circuit. The selection and installation of these protective devices should be done in accordance with the National Electrical Code and the manufacturer's recommendations. In addition to the technical aspects of protecting outdoor electrical equipment, it's also important to consider the aesthetic impact of the installation. The enclosure should be chosen to blend in with the surrounding environment and minimize its visual impact. The installation should be done in a neat and professional manner with all wiring and conduit properly concealed. The goal is to create an installation that is not only safe and reliable, but also visually appealing. In summary, protecting outdoor electrical equipment is a complex process that requires careful consideration of a variety of factors. These include the NEMA rating of the enclosure, the material of construction, the method of mounting, the accessibility of the equipment, and the environmental conditions. By following the guidelines outlined in the National Electrical Code and the manufacturer's recommendations, you can ensure that your outdoor electrical equipment is properly protected and that your electrical system is safe and reliable. Remember to consult with a qualified electrician to ensure that all work is done in accordance with all applicable codes and standards. A final point to consider is the labeling of the enclosure. It's important to clearly label the enclosure with appropriate warnings and information such as the voltage, amperage, and disconnecting means. This will help to ensure the safety of anyone who may come into contact with the equipment. The labeling should be durable and weather-resistant to withstand the outdoor environment. Furthermore, it's advisable to keep a record of all inspections and maintenance performed on the enclosure. This will help to track the condition of the enclosure over time and identify any potential problems before they become serious. The record should include the date of the inspection, the name of the inspector, and any findings or recommendations. By following these guidelines, you can ensure that your outdoor electrical equipment is properly protected and that your electrical system is safe and reliable for many years to come. Remember, safety is always the top priority when working with electricity. Always consult with a qualified electrician if you have any questions or concerns. The process of protecting outdoor electrical equipment extends beyond simply selecting an NEMA-rated enclosure. It also involves a comprehensive understanding of the specific environmental challenges present at the installation site and implementing strategies to mitigate those risks. For instance, in areas prone to flooding, the enclosure may need to be elevated above the anticipated flood level or designed to be submersible. In areas with heavy snowfall, the enclosure may need to be reinforced to withstand the weight of accumulated snow. In areas with high winds, the enclosure may need to be securely anchored to prevent it from being blown over. In addition to these physical considerations, it's also important to address the potential for vandalism or unauthorized access. The enclosure may need to be equipped with locking mechanisms or other security features to prevent tampering or theft. The location of the enclosure should also be chosen carefully to minimize its visibility and accessibility to unauthorized individuals. Another critical aspect of protecting outdoor electrical equipment is ensuring proper drainage. Water can accumulate inside enclosures due to condensation or leaks, which can lead to corrosion and electrical failures. The enclosure should be designed to allow water to drain freely, or it should be equipped with a drainage system to remove accumulated water. The drainage system should be regularly inspected and maintained to ensure that it is functioning properly. Furthermore, it's essential to protect the wiring and cabling that enters and exits the enclosure. The wiring should be properly supported and secured to prevent it from chafing or rubbing against the enclosure. The entry and exit points should be sealed to prevent the ingress of moisture or contaminants. The wiring should also be protected from physical damage, such as being stepped on or run over. In some cases, it may be necessary to install a separate conduit system to protect the wiring. In addition to the National Electrical Code, there may be other applicable codes and standards that govern the installation of outdoor electrical equipment. These may include local building codes, fire codes, and environmental regulations. It's important to consult with local authorities to determine the specific requirements that apply to the installation. It's also advisable to obtain the necessary permits before starting any work. Finally, it's important to remember that the protection of outdoor electrical equipment is an ongoing process. The enclosure and all associated components should be regularly inspected and maintained to ensure that they are functioning properly. Any damaged or worn component should be replaced promptly. The surrounding area should be kept clear of debris and vegetation to prevent it from interfering with the operation of the equipment. By following these guidelines, you can ensure that your outdoor electrical equipment is properly protected and that your electrical system is safe and reliable for many years to come. And remember, when in doubt, always consult with a qualified electrician.